Hey, Magic fans, welcome back. This is your captain speaking from Capnclyde's MTG News and Spoiler Edition. So, before we get started, remember, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you know when all these new spoilers go up and any other news I might speak of, box openings, and you name it. Leave comments down below, feed that algorithm for YouTube, get these videos up, post it, and so more people can see them. So I'll really appreciate any help I can get, and so does the channel. So, without further ado, guys, let's hit these Modern Horizon 2 spoilers again for the day of 5/29, Friday. So first, let's start off with some reprints. We have the Ice Fang Coatl reprint. This is from Modern Horizons 1. It's a blue-green. It's a snow creature. It's a snake. Has flash. Has flying. Enters the battlefield. You draw a card. If you have 3 snow permanents, excuse me, 3 other snow permanents, it has Death Touch. Became very popular in Modern for a long time, especially with the new snow lands and everything else. Getting a much-needed reprint in Modern Horizons 2. So, moving on. Our next reprint is we have a reprint of Fire and Ice. That's right. So Fire deals 2 damage, divide any way you choose among any 1 or 2 targets. And for the Ice side, you can tap target permanent and draw a card. So reprint from back in the day, straight into Modern. Moving on, next we have the Bone Shredder. I don't remember what set this was originally printed in. If I had to take a guess, I think it was around the Odyssey Onslaught era, somewhere in there. But this is a reprint, uncommon. It's a 1 black, 2 colors for a 1/1 flyer. It has Echo, which means you got to pay the Echo cost the following turn or it dies. But when it comes into play, you get to destroy target non-artifact, non-black creature. So basically, it's a 1/1 flyer with a terror attached to it. Back in the day, this was a powerhouse. Still going to be real good in draft, but obviously this is probably not going to see any modern play. Moving right along, uh, we have the whole set of talismans are being reprinted again at the uncommon level. All these talismans came from Modern Horizons 1 set. There's one talisman missing from this. I couldn't get it squeezed into the picture. But yeah, all the talismans from Modern Horizons 1 are being reprinted, so yay for that. Then we have a reprint of Braid, the Cabal minion. So 2 black, 2 colorless for a 2/2, and at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices an artifact, creature, and or land. Well, or land, not and. Um, so this is back from the Odyssey era, back in those days. It was a decent card. Had a lot to do with control. It doesn't see modern play now. I don't think it'll see modern play with this. Probably just a little bit of a needed reprint for some of the EDH guys out there who like to make sure shenanigans decks. Probably gonna be a bulk rare at best. It might go up to $5 depending on what people do with it. But like I said before, guys, I'm probably not gonna see modern play. Moving on. All right, so we got our first new card. We have the Altar of Goyf. So I love this card flavor-wise. I think it's hilarious. So you see the Katamar Goyf here. It's all sweet. Altar, yeah, good stuff. So for 5 colorless, you have a tribal artifact, Loigoyf. And it says whenever a creature you control attacks alone, it gets +X/+X to end a turn, where X is the number of card types among cards in all graveyards, just like the regular Loigoyf. Or Tarmogoyf, sorry. Loigoyf creatures you control have trample. So, with that said, not gonna see modern play because it's 5 colorless. Tarmogoyf does good enough job by his lonesome. This will be hilarious though in EDH decks, especially if they start printing more Goyfs. So you can actually make a tribal Goyf deck, which I think would be phenomenal. So, moving on. Next we have the Caldera Complete. So this is a 7 colorless mythic legendary artifact equipment. This is a living weapon, so when it comes into play, it comes into play with a 0/0 token on it. It's indestructible, and that token gets +5/+5, has first strike, trample, indestructible, haste, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a creature, you exile that creature. Mind you, it has first strike and trample, so that means 1 point of damage hits it, it exiles the creature on first strike, so it can't sit there. So this thing is basically unstoppable. It equips for 7. Luckily, though, unlike the Batter Skull, it's not able to be picked back up and replayed. However, it is indestructible. So you have to find some way to kill the creature. with some sacrifice effect or something like that. Now, with that said, 7 colorless um, is something that's not going to be played uh, in modern normally. But one thing I want you guys to remember is Batterskull is a thing. It's a one of that is played. This could very easily be played with Batterskull, with Stoneforge Mystic, which has been unbanned for quite some time, but has not been as powerful as it used to be. With something like this could make all the difference in those Stoneforge Mystic decks. If you can get a Stoneforge Mystic on the table and it doesn't die, and you pull this out, pull one of the, because you only need one, because Stoneforge will fetch it up for you. You pull this out of your deck, put it in play, and you're well on your way to just winning the game. Period. So I think because of that, this will see modern play because of Stoneforge decks. They'll still have their Batter Skulls because Batter Skulls are good and they can normally get to that kind of mana because they run enough mana to do that in that deck. But if you get this out with a Stoneforge or you put it in your hand and you manage to tap a Stoneforge and sneak this thing in on turn 3 or 4, sweet baby Jesus. Um, yeah, this is going to be an expensive card, and it's probably going to see it. It's going to be at least a one of in those Stoneforge Mystic decks. So if I was you guys, I would watch out for this. And you EDH players, I know you're loving it already. So moving right along. Next we have the Clattering Auger. It's a black and a colorless. It's a 1/1 that can't block. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card and lose a life, so that's pretty sweet. Basically 2 mana to draw a card. For a 2 black and 2 colorless, you can return it from your graveyard to your hand. So, very interesting draw effects. Not going to see modern play. I don't think this doesn't do enough. Will be pretty good in draft, I think, just as the ability to draw cards and so forth. Maybe even see a little bit of EDH play, but not going to make a real big impact, especially as an uncommon. So, moving on, we have yet another Planeswalker. And it looks like this one is Gaodrona, Dihida. I'm probably butchering that like all beat out. But anyway, so it's a red, black, blue, and a colorless. So it's basically Grixis colors. So this Planeswalker has protection from permanents with corruption counters on them. That's the static ability. Comes into play for 4, costs 4 to cast. Now, for +1, each opponent loses 2 life. You gain 2 life. You put a corruption counter on up to one other target creature or Planeswalker. And once it has a corruption counter, it can't hurt this creature. Now, it comes in with 4, so when you put it in, you can do -3, which says gain control of a target creature or Planeswalker in a turn. Untap it, put a corruption counter on it, and it gains haste till end of turn. So you can steal a creature, hit somebody with it, give it back to them, and they still can't damage this creature. Now, for -7, you gain control of each permanent with a corruption counter on it. That is just insane. So this is a 4-mana Planeswalker that can protect itself. It can steal big nappy creatures. I think this is a really good Planeswalker. Now, for 4 mana, it's really going to struggle to find its place, I think, in the modern format. But as far as EDH and other formats goes that this is legal in, just wow. This is really a powerhouse. And I think we may, depending on what kind of format we're in, I mean, if we end up in a big creature format, this Planeswalker could be huge. So keep an eye on this one, guys. It's going to be a good one. Moving right along, we have Endurance. So this is the green incarnation. We've talked about this before. Every color has an incarnation card. They all have the same functions. This one is 2 green and 1. Make a 3/4. So not too bad. Pretty much like a Thrashing Bronodon. This has Flash and it has Reach, so that's pretty cool. When it enters the battlefield, you can up to one target player puts all cards from their graveyard on the bottom of their library in random order, and you can invoke it for a green card from your hand. So this is a pretty cool card. Um, will it see play in modern? I don't think so, unless somebody puts it in a sideboard just to screw with dredge decks. But putting all the cards on the bottom of their deck doesn't really solve the dredge part of the problem. There's better cards that do stuff like that, even in green, I think. Uh, so I think it's a good mythic. It may have a home, but it's gonna have to see some play first. But 3 mana for a 3/4 seems kind of high, even though it has flash. Unless somebody finds some kind of blink deck that makes this thing worthwhile. But this might be a good deck for a good card for EDH, just because of the whole special ability it has, and it's got on a pretty good rate. So that might be the one thing that carries it, but they probably won't see modern play. So moving on, here is something. Damned. Darn. Damn. Anyway, so this is a very interesting card. It's 2 black sorcery. It says destroy target creature. It can't be regenerated. Nothing really special there. But for 2 white and 2, it becomes basically a Wrath of God. So this kind of 2 mana removal spell, even though it's double black, I think we'll see play. Just because not only is it a single creature removal spell, it doubles as a board wipe because of the overload effect. And things cannot be regenerated. I think this should have been a mythic, and I think this is going to see lots of play. And even if it doesn't find very many homes in Modern, every EDH deck that runs black and white, or maybe even just white and splash black, whatever, they're going to want to run one of these because it's a Wrath of God. I mean, you could run white with no black in your deck and just always know that you're going to cast it for the overload, so you have 2 Wrath of Gods. Like, I just think this is going to be a really big card, and I really think it should have been a mythic because it seems kind of powerful. So moving on, Gorilla Shaman. Ooh, 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 ooh. That's right, guys. For 1 red, 1/1, XX and 1, destroy target non-creature artifact with mana value 0. Mox Monkey has arrived in Modern. Look out, Urza. The Mox Monkey's coming for you. This, I think, is going to make a big impact in Modern. It's already on rate, 1 mana for a 1/1, with a special ability to just zap artifacts left and right that are non-creature artifacts. Um, this is going to be a heavily sideboarded card, I think. Not to mention that not only does it destroy the artifacts, but it just beats your opponent in the face at the same time. So, welcome back, Mox Monkey. We've missed you. And I must also say that art is fantastic. So this will see play. It probably won't be worth a whole lot of money. The foil ones will probably be worth something. But this will just be a good card you'll see out there. Moving on. Now here we have a really interesting one. It's called the Milliken. So it's 2 colorless, and that looks like a mannequin. It's really weird. It's a construct, so it's an 0/1 creature that you can tap. You mill a card, and then add 1 colorless. And that's all it does. So I don't think it's going to see a lot of play. I'm sure there's probably some weird deck out there somewhere that this might be a thing for, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. Maybe something with the graveyard shenanigans. I mean, yeah, like, I don't know. Looks weird to me. I mean, I don't think it's any better. I don't think it's better than a Shriekhorn, but who knows what I know. So, moving on. Next here we have Defile. So, for 1 black, target creature gets -1/-1 till the end of turn for each swamp you control, and it's an instant. So, this is a really good removal spell for draft, and it can be a great removal spell in Modern. The problem is the other black removal spells have so much more versatility. Things like, push, vindicate. There's lots of other things you can do that are better than this, and especially with the weird mana bases you run in Modern, where you run all these shock lands and so forth. You may not have maybe 1, 2, 3 swamps at most times, so you're only gonna give something -3, -3. Um, and if you're gonna do something like that, you really need something more versatile, like a push or something that can kill something that's maybe a 3/4 that has a 3 casting cost, by triggering, your fetch land or what have you. So I don't think this is going to see Modern play as cool as it sounds. Will be a big thing in draft, and maybe a couple EDH players might rock it. So next here we have the Flame Blitz. So for 1 red, it's an enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, Flame Blitz deals 5 damage to each Planeswalker. This thing is bonkers. I mean, this basically just says, hey, my red deck, I'm going to lay a Flame Blitz. Now you can never have a Planeswalker because you'll have them on your turn. On my turn, it's probably going to die because it's going to take 5 damage. And if it's not good in your deck, like even if you want to start it, it has cycling. So if you end up with too many in your hand, you have like 2 on the board, so you're dealing 10 damage to a Planeswalker every turn. I mean, you can just cycle the other ones. I think this is a great uncommon. Very, very powerful. It's going to be only a sideboard card at best. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. But I do think it will probably see some play. Moving on. Here we have adito and falito, which is said and done. So the said part is a blue and 2 color sorcery that returns target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. Not too bad, does cost 3 in a sorcery. Now the done part is a blue and 3 colorless as an instant that says tap up to 2 target creatures. They don't untap during their controller's next untap step. Not a bad uncommon, going to be really good in draft, but mana cost wise and everything, not going to see Modern play. However, I do think this is going to be a card that's going to slip right into those sweet blue EDH decks because those 2 options right there are just phenomenal. Moving right along, we have the Sanctifier Invec. You guys remember those good old Invecs from back in the day? So this one is a 2 white, 2/2, so it's on rate, has protection from black and red, which means it'll never die. And when it enters the battlefield, you exile all cards that are black or red from all graveyards, and if a black or red permanent, spell, or card not on the battlefield to be put into a graveyard, you exile it instead. So this may be the answer to Croxa decks, the other decks, Jund Sacrifice, anything that's black-red. This is probably going to be the answer because it's going to keep them from hitting you, and it's going to keep them from being able to pull things back out of the graveyard. It's going to put a stop to all the Phoenix decks. This is going to be an easy $5 rare, I think, depending on what the format shapes up to be. It could be as low as $1 if these colors aren't real big in the format. But just looking at like all the prowess cards and stuff like this, I think this will be a big hitter because it'll stop the lava spikes, so they can't recast them because they never go to the graveyard because they get exiled, so forth and so on. So I think this is going to have some definite legs, and it will be played. If not in main decks, at least in sideboards, especially in modern. So moving right along, we have the Karmic Guide. So for 2 white and 3, we have what looks like a woman with... Oh, she's an angel. I thought that big mushroom thing on top of her head was her hair. My bad. Anyway, so she's a angel spirit. She's a 2/2 with flying and protection from black for 5. Bit much overpriced. Plus it has echo of 5, which is like whoa. But when it enters the battlefield, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So this could be a really good card that you could loop. And I say that because, if you get like a Soul Warden or something on the field that you're getting triggers from creatures into the battlefield constantly, you could easily have one of these in your graveyard, play another one, bring back the other one into play, which means that the next turn it'll have to echo, and you can start like an echo loop where one echoes out, one echoes in, and you can just kind of like loop these things. So with that said, though, for 5 mana and with the ability, I think it's really going to be a stretch to get this to do anything really productive. So I don't see this doing anything, even though it's a rare. I think this is going to be part of the bulk bin, guys. Moving on, we have Abiding Grace. Beautiful artwork. A white and 2 colorless enchantment that at the beginning of your end step, you choose to either gain a life or return a creature card with mana value 1 from your graveyard to the battlefield. I don't see this being a thing, especially because it's in white. There's not a lot of white 1-drops that you're going to want to pull out of the graveyard very often. Not to mention the extra ability of just getting 1 life every turn probably won't be a thing. I mean, maybe it's a Soul Sister card or some other weird deck like that with life manipulation, like Counter Companies, maybe, just because you can gain a life at the end step and start the combo. But as an uncommon, I don't think this is going to see modern play. Maybe it might be a thing at EDH, but if all your stuff's 1 mana in the graveyard and you got 8 land on the field, you should be probably casting something a little more powerful than this. So moving on, Sudden Edict. I'm really excited about this, especially as an uncommon. So you have a black and a colorless for an instant with split second, which means it cannot be countered, nothing can be done. It has to resolve first, and target player sacrifices a creature. This is the best Edict ability, where basically you make the opponent sacrifice a creature, and they cannot stop you. You get that, like with that 7/7 that's indestructible. If that's the only creature on the field and they try to cast a second creature, you cast Sudden Edict. They can't counter, they can't put a spell in or a creature in at an instant speed to sacrifice it. Instead, they have to sacrifice something on the field at that second, and that's how you're going to kill those kinds of creatures. I think this is a great removal spell and will see modern play in some way, shape, or form. If not in main decks, definitely in sideboards. And also, too, this is going to be a really sweet EDH thing just to mess with people. Next, we have the Shattered Ego. So for 1 blue, you have an enchantment Aura. You enchant a creature. The creature gets -3/-0. For 5, you put enchanted creature into its owner's library, 3rd from the top. Okay, I guess. I mean, it is a common. Nobody's going to play this thing. I mean, at best, it might see draft play, but that's really going to be about it. Moving on, we have the Thraben Watcher. So 2 white, 2 colorless for an angel with flying and vigilance. It's a 2/2, 4 for a 2/2 flyer. Bit overpriced, but other non-token creatures you control get +1/+1 and have vigilance. Great for draft, bad for modern. When I read this and it said Thraben Watcher, I really expected some kind of clue mechanic on this card, and I'm really upset it doesn't have one. So, moving on. Next here we have Titania, Protector of Argoth. So everybody remembers Titania, right? She's a sweet card. Well, she never had a card before, but if you remember back in the day in Urza's Saga, I believe there was Titania's elves or elves of Titania or something like that that tapped and made a bunch of money. They got a bunch of mana. They got banned because they were way too good. So let's see what she's looking like. So for 2 green and 3, that's 5 mana. That's already a rough. That's a rough ass for modern already. She's a legendary creature elemental. She's mythic. All right. She's 5/3. Not too great because you can bolt her. When she enters the battlefield, return target land card from your graveyard to your battlefield. Okay, I guess. Whenever land you control is put into the graveyard, you get a 5/3 green elemental creature token. So that's sweet with a lot of fetch lands. Um, and you can play it with, Ren and 6. You can start the real cool combo. But with 3 toughness, it makes her easy to kill. 5 mana to get her on the field. You're going to have to ramp her. I'm going to have to see it to believe it, but I don't think this is going to be a modern thing. This is definitely an EDH thing. Like, this is the kind of thing you want in your commander deck. Getting lands back that are fetch lands, fetching, making big fatties. Like, I think this is a sweet card. I do like it. I just don't think it's good enough to see modern play. But it will see play in other formats, especially Commander. So we move on. Now we have Lose Focus. So that picture is terrifying and funny all at the same time. This is a common for blue and a colorless. It says counter target spell unless its controller pays 2. So it's almost a mana leak. It has replicate for 1 blue, which is when you replicate it, you basically copy it for each time you pay the extra replication cost, which in this time would be a blue, and you may choose new targets for those copies. I don't think it's going to see modern play because Mana Leak's just better. Plus, they just reprinted Counterspell, which is just a flat counter into the format. The only reason I see this being worth anything is it could be sideboarded in if Storm decks become a thing because you can replicate it and use the replicated copy to stop some of the Storm stuff that's coming off. Now, with that said, you're not going to win because they're probably going to storm you for 20, and if you could replicate for 20, the games went way too long anyway, and you should have already won. So I really don't see it. I don't see this having play at all. So that's just my personal opinion. Now, in EDH, this might be hilarious with all the shenanigans that goes on in there. So keep an eye out for that. Moving on. Here we have the Blazing Rootwalla. Oh, I remember the old nasty Rootwalla. So this is a 1 red 1/1. Pretty cool. Blazing Rootwalla gets +2/+0 to their turn. You only activate once a turn. So for 1 red, you can make it a 3/1. It's pretty sweet. And it has Madness 0. Yes. It reminds me of the good old Basking Rootwalla. You guys remember that? Green card pumped itself up to a 3/3 for, I think it was 2 mana. Green and colorless. Had Madness 0. So his homeboy's in the house. Must be his distant cousin. So really like this card. It's pretty good. I think it's right to make it 1 red instead of 2 to make it a 3/1 because if it's a 3/3, it can still be bolted, especially in modern. So the difference in toughness between 1 and 3 is really negligible. It does open it up to being Lava Spike though, or not Lava Spiked. Yeah, Lava. The one that does 1 damage, you sacrifice a mountain, bring it back. It makes it weak to that, which is okay because this is kind of a powerful card, and this may see play, but I honestly doubt it because I don't think it does enough. And more often than not, you're not going to madness it out unless that's what your deck's doing. So just don't see that being a thing. So sorry about that, guys. With that said, thanks for watching the spoilers. Not a whole lot of good stuff going on this time. We did get a few good planeswalkers. So remember, guys, the LGSs are open. It's time to play Magic. Let's get out there, support your local LGS, which is your local game store, your vendor, or whoever else it is out there you're buying your cards from. And as always, like, subscribe to the channel, help it hit that algorithm and go up the charts. And let's make a better community for all of us as Magic players and be friendly and kind to each other and loving and caring. And until next time, guys, remember to be kind because this is your captain speaking. And I'll see you at the game tables. Catch you next time.